All right, let's dive even deeper into the details and reasoning for each of these key states and how they play into this heated race. 10 days away from the 2024 presidential election, and it's a high stakes showdown between Trump and Harris in what's shaping up to be an intense battle for the Oval Office. As we get closer, Trump's momentum has become a central story, with poll after poll showing him reaching unprecedented levels of support in several crucial states. Today, we're going to take a closer look at my updated electoral map forecast, breaking down the situation state by state to see where Harris and Trump each stand in the race to hit that magic number of 270 electoral votes. This breakdown will include how key issues are playing out, polling trends, and the historic patterns that have shaped voter behavior in the states where the competition is fiercest. First up is Texas. This state has long been a cornerstone of the GOP's electoral map, and it's one of the largest and most reliable sources of Republican votes. Trump carried Texas by 6 points in 2020 and by an even larger margin of 9 points back in 2016. This time around, Trump is aiming to extend his lead even further. Currently, he's projected to win Texas by somewhere between 7 and 10 points, although we're unlikely to see a historic margin like 15 points. The last Republican who won Texas by a margin in the teens was Mitt Romney in 2012, when he defeated Barack Obama by about 16 points. However, even with a smaller margin than Romney's, a double-digit win for Trump would be significant. Texas's 40 electoral votes are a substantial chunk of the 270 needed to win, and with a strong base of conservative voters, the state remains comfortably in Trump's column as likely red. Texas is unique because its political landscape has shifted slightly in recent years, with Democratic gains in urban centers like Houston, Austin, and Dallas. However, Trump's appeal to suburban and rural voters remains incredibly strong, and this helps offset Democratic advances in cities. The shift in demographics and increased voting power of suburban counties hasn't turned Texas blue, but it has made the margins narrower than in decades past. Nevertheless, Trump's steady popularity here has held firm, and he's expected to maintain a comfortable lead. Texas is one of those states that has swung Republican in every presidential election since 1980, making it one of the longest standing conservative strongholds, and there's little indication that will change this time around. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Over to Florida. Another state with substantial influence. We're looking at 30 electoral votes. The Sunshine State has a history of being a battleground, and in 2020, both parties fought hard for it. However, Trump's current lead there has made it less of a battleground and more of a GOP stronghold. We add up Texas and Florida. Trump secures 70 electoral votes right from the start. With just those two states, he's already over a quarter of the way to victory, which is a huge step forward. In 2020, Florida was a close call for most of the election season, with polls showing Biden either narrowly leading or in a tight race. Despite Democratic hopes and poll projections, Biden underperformed in Florida, actually doing worse than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. In 2024, the Democrats have largely conceded Florida, acknowledging it has moved firmly into the Republican camp. Florida's swing towards Trump is tied to demographic shifts and the political leanings of Cuban Americans and other Latino communities in South Florida, where Trump has made notable inroads. Democrats have been losing ground with Hispanic voters in Florida for a variety of reasons, including economic concerns, social conservatism, and foreign policy issues related to Latin America. Polls show Trump's lead at around 7 to 12 points, a significant shift from previous cycles, indicating that Florida is now likely red. This brings Trump's electoral count to 219 when you add up all the likely red states where he's expected to win by significant margins. That leaves him only 51 electoral votes away from a potential victory. With this in mind, let's look at the likely blue states where Harris holds the advantage. Oregon and New Jersey are two of the states where Harris is still polling comfortably ahead, though not by as much as their neighboring liberal states. While Oregon has historically leaned Democratic, Harris's numbers here reflect the general trend of tighter races nationwide. Voters in Oregon, while favoring Democrats, tend to be slightly more independent, especially in rural areas. New Jersey, on the other hand, has a reliably blue record in recent presidential elections, but Harris's margins are notably narrower than Biden's. Both Oregon and New Jersey fall into the likely blue category, but Harris isn't hitting the numbers Biden did in 2020. New York is another state where Harris is expected to win. but her numbers here are not as strong as Biden's were. New York, with its 28 electoral votes, has been a Democratic stronghold for years, but current polling suggests Harris could end up with the worst Democratic performance here since 1988. Back then, the race between George H.W. Bush and Michael Dukakis saw New York more competitive than usual, and 2024 could mirror that pattern. New York's metropolitan areas, particularly New York City, are predominantly Democratic, but Harris's underperformance suggests discontent with the party, likely tied to issues like inflation, rising living costs, and crime rates in urban areas. Colorado, with its 10 electoral votes, is another likely blue state, though it has become somewhat more competitive. Biden carried Colorado by a solid 14 points in 2020, but Harris is projected to win by a much slimmer margin, potentially by around 7 points. Like Oregon, Colorado has a base of independent-minded voters who may lean blue, but aren't as reliably Democratic as voters in states like California. Colorado's growing suburban and urban populations favor Democrats, but there's also significant conservative presence in rural areas. The state remains in the Democratic column, but with much tighter numbers. With these states combined, Harris has a total of 191 electoral votes, putting her over halfway to the 270 needed to win, but still significantly behind Trump. This leaves us with the remaining battleground states. The 12 states where the race is still close and could easily swing in either direction. For Harris, winning in these areas is crucial, and her best path to victory lies in sweeping the upper Midwest states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Biden won all 4 of these in 2020, but Harris's polling numbers suggest she may struggle to repeat that feat. In fact, she's polling lower than Biden was 4 years ago, and even worse than Hillary Clinton in 2016 when she lost Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, but narrowly held Minnesota. In Minnesota, Harris's narrow lead is primarily due to the popularity of Governor Tim Walz, who has helped rally Democratic support in the state. Without Walz, Minnesota could be one of the tightest races in the country. Harris leads here by about 3 to 4 points, down from Biden's 7-point lead in 2020. Minnesota remains lean blue, but is not the Democratic stronghold it once was. New Mexico, with its diverse voter base, also presents challenges for Harris. She's only 6 points ahead, far below Biden's 2020 margin. Like Florida, New Mexico has seen a noticeable shift among Hispanic voters who are increasingly supporting Republican candidates. This trend, which has been building over recent election cycles, has affected Harris's standing in the state. New Mexico is marked as lean blue, but it's clearly moving toward a more competitive status. Moving east to the smaller battlegrounds in New Hampshire and Maine, both states are less secure for Harris than they were for Biden. While Biden carried both by solid margins, recent history has shown these states to be unpredictable. In 2016, Clinton won New Hampshire by a razor-thin margin of less than half a percentage point, and she won Maine by just 3 points. Harris is currently polling between Biden's and Clinton's numbers, so these states are classified as lean blue. Virginia, too, has tightened. Polls show Harris with only a 5-point lead, down from Biden's 10-point margin. The Republican gubernatorial victory of Glenn Youngkin in 2021 indicates Virginia's gradual shift rightward, although it's still leaning toward Harris by a slim margin. Finally, we arrive at the 7 swing states that are truly up for grabs: Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. These states hold the power to decide the election, with both parties pouring resources into them. In Georgia, Trump's polling lead of 2.2 suggests a potential return to the GOP after Biden's narrow win in 2020. The state's suburban voters and conservative rural base give Trump a strong foundation, putting Georgia in the lean red column with a projected 3 to 4 point win. Arizona, another crucial state, is polling in Trump's favor by 1 point fade. Given Arizona's status as a bellwether for conservative and independent-leaning voters, a win here is essential for Trump's path to 270. Arizona's shift from a toss-up to lean red reflects Trump's growing support. Pennsylvania, the largest swing state, is a critical battleground. With 19 electoral votes, Trump's narrow 0.6 lead signals a potential shift. Both campaigns have heavily invested in Pennsylvania, with frequent visits and rallies emphasizing its significance. Trump is likely to win here by around 2 points, securing a crucial advantage. In North Carolina, Trump leads by 0.888, and his previous wins in the state bolster his chances. However, down ballot controversies with the GOP gubernatorial candidate could impact Trump's margin. North Carolina falls under the tilt red category, indicating a likely win with slight uncertainty. Finally, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan, where Trump leads by slim margins of around 0.2, show promising trends for the GOP. These states are marked as tilt red, rounding out Trump's path to a projected total of 312 electoral votes against Harris's 226. In summary, with strong leads in key swing states, Trump is well positioned to clinch the presidency. If these predictions hold, his comeback to the White House seems all but assured.